everything should tell you that this thing is rigged from the top, right? And that what they chose to prosecute was not the underlying crime or the crime that they're accusing of him, but rather character.
And whether or not it gets overturned on appeal is sort of beside the point for the prosecution, because all they want is a lower court guilty verdict that they can take to the press.
The only end game here for the left is just to get him convicted of a felony.
The way things have been going for the past week has made me so pessimistic and kind of disappointed in the state of things, where I don't think this is even about Donald Trump anymore. It's just that the left wants nothing standing in their way.
I just find it unfathomable that a jury of anyone could charge somebody and convict somebody of a felony that relates to an underlying crime that prosecutors never thought they could prosecute in the first place. Will a guilty verdict in the New York Trump trial change your vote?
A new study reports that credit card rewards provide a lifeline for working class Americans. Rewards like cash back empower low and middle income families to pay for the rising price of groceries and gas. So why are DC politicians partnering with corporate megastores to steal cash back from families during skyrocketing inflation? The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill takes billions from American families, lining corporate pockets instead. Protect our credit card rewards lifeline. Tell DC politicians to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. Learn more at electronicpaymentscoalition.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to a high-energy program here on a big Thursday afternoon. We have a full cast, including McDaniel.
How's it going,
back,
fellas?
Pat.
Good to see you.
I mean, listen, we have some legal analysis, so you're here.
It's a big week. It's a big week for law. Law and order in this country.
We'll see if it works or not.
That's right.
It might not.
Law, yes or no?
Yeah.
That's the big question this week.
Yeah. Third branch, yes or no?
Right.
Yeah, no question about it. Listen, I want to start with the top, which is thank you. Thank you in a very, very big way. And I mean this sincerely. We've had a lot of listeners from day one who've been incredible to this program. But over the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we've had an enormous expansion of our audience. And to you, thank you. Welcome aboard. You're going to be a part of the community that you didn't know you were going to miss it, but you're going to miss it if you're not here.
That's right.
And this is a really, really fun time for us. Obviously, everybody's into politics, and so are we, culture and everything else. We talk about a little bit of everything, but you being a part of it is really important to us. And thank you for coming aboard. For those of you who haven't liked and subscribed, remember that's free.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't cost
a penny to subscribe.
It doesn't do anything. Right? I mean, so if you're like on your YouTube and you're just like screwing around, you see the subscribe button, press that thing. Mm-hmm. Press it. It's vitally important to us. And you can get all of us all the time, right?
Yeah.
Very important.
It is very important. And welcome, new listeners. There will be a hazing period.
Yeah.
There will be bows and toes. There will be wall sits. So strap in. You're going to be glad you did.
You're going to be glad to get. There's a brief moment of some pain, but after that, you're going to be just fine. I want to start today's program with something we saw earlier this week because I think it sets the table perfectly. If we can go to clip 1, please, Spaghetts.
We're trying to be gentlemen in this world. The Democrats. You are gangsters. Excuse me. You are gangsters. You're washed up. Fuck you. You're a softy. You're a nobody. Your movie sucked. You're trash.
Your movie sucked.
You're trash.
M-O-O-K. Mook. You're a traitor to Italian and Jews.
Traitor. So this was obviously the aftermath of a press conference that the Biden campaign set up to try to bracket the Trump trial in New York. And I think it's important to understand that throughout the process of all of the Trump legal issues, the Biden White House, the Biden campaign, has taken a stance where they're basically like, well, this is a serious bunch of issues that need to be litigated in the third branch of government. We are not going to involve ourselves. It's not a political issue, yada, yada, yada. The last day before closing arguments, they're like, it's entirely a political issue.
Right. And you know what? We're going to have Robert De Niro front this thing.
And it didn't go well.
No.
I mean, it couldn't have gone worse. First of all, I love Robert De Niro as an actor. Love him as an actor. Everything. I mean, look, he narrated a whole bunch of our childhood in terms of like great movies. As an individual, as a citizen, yikes. He was a disaster. He came out and he was reading like nonsense talking points and then immediately got shouted down. You see this disaster that unfolded. I can't imagine that's what the Biden team was thinking.
No, it just goes to show you that a lot of these actors have literally spent their careers just reading what's put in front of them. It's not like they come up with the ideas. It's not like Robert De Niro's like, yeah, Goodfellas, this is the movie and this is what the plot's going to be, and therefore it's going to be a winner.
Is it that bad, though? I mean, like, to be honest with you, my exposure to Hollywood is so limited. Like, I don't know anything about it. Is it so bad in that there is no ad-lib? Like, they have no capability? I mean, this is one of the greatest actors of his generation. And he shows up. I don't know. Like, my fucking father could do a better job than that. Like, that's the most insanely bad script that guy has ever done.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all, Holmes. I mean, you've watched the Oscars. You've seen when all of these celebrities wade into politics. I mean, none of them ever sound smart about politics, which is always what like I have found so insane about our culture, is that in moments of political strife, there are people, serious people, who are like, let's see what Robert De Niro thinks about this. You know, he played Al Capone, so maybe he knows a lot about our law system. You know, justice.
And him calling other people gangsters is completely
fucking hilarious. The irony of this guy in Goodfellas, this guy in Casino, this guy who literally played Al Capone, who was rung up on IRS charges, by the way, is now suddenly before, you know, a court being like, law and order in our country.
He made his name in The Godfather. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're like the most incredible criminal mastermind drama of all time. And now he's like, you're gangsters, you're gangsters.
Like, what a fucking heel turn.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what really, to me, was obvious is this is who the Biden campaign picked because this is their constituency. Mm-hmm. Rich people who are just so out of touch. Mm-hmm. Like, he's out here talking about, like, we need to get rid of Trump once and for all to save democracy. What the hell are you talking about? Like, I didn't see you giving any stump speeches about how Americans' net worth has gone down. Mm-hmm. Did you talk about when parents couldn't get baby formula? You can talk about how we have an open border and we have people in our country, we don't know who they are, murdering Americans.
Well, I heard a report that he showed up in a N95 mask. Is that true?
N95, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Come on.
Yeah.
He did.
I mean, just think about the brain damage it would take at this day and age to show up in a, like, literally military grade mask to just
yeah, in 2024.
Yeah, I mean,
to give your partisan talking points.
You're supposed to you only go to like the Free Palestine rallies when you're wearing an N95 mask nowadays. No, I mean, look, it's good for him. It's good to see him getting work. Oh, he's getting older. It's tough in Hollywood. I mean, give it maybe 20 more years, he might be able to play Joe Biden.
Oh,
It'll be a great role of a lifetime.
Yeah, if you thought the CGI work was bad in The Irishman, just wait till he plays Joe Biden.
No, I just like it that they couldn't find anybody in New York, so they had to bring somebody over from, like, let's find somebody crazier than New York. Let's go to Hollywood.
Yeah,
it's great. It's terrific.
It really is remarkable. But listen, we're going to get to all of this, and we've got some interchangeability with the last few episodes that you've talked about. We're going to get to your comments on a lot of things that we've talked about. Coming up, Verdict Watch is a very big deal.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about this as it relates to the New York trial. The jury has now gone out and been given instructions. It can come back anytime. We'll cover all of that. And I think you have a verdict that we'll cover.
Yeah.
Democrats are freaking out about Biden's prospects. By the way, we covered this on Thursday about how crazy Democrats are going about the fact that they could lose this thing. And, like, it's only gotten worse.
It's gotten a lot worse.
So just to preview it a little bit for our audience, I will read these articles periodically, in Politico or Axios or whatever, from basically Democrats dumping on Biden anonymously. It's like freebasing cocaine. You do not want to miss.
Isn't that crack?
No, well, yeah, I guess maybe it is crack.
Is, yeah.
I'm really not familiar. Don't do drugs. But you will not want to miss this segment because it is so delicious.
It's so good. There's also the Gaza Pier, which we'll talk about.
Past tense.
What a story this is. It is actually a national scandal that you all should be aware of if you're not already. And then we're going to welcome back King of the Hill.
Yeah.
And a peanut gallery for King of the Hill.
You brought in a lawyer for it. This must be a good one.
It is funny that we have a law game and the actual lawyer on the panel is peanut gallery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
Which I love.
That's the way we roll
Yeah.
here. It's what is it? Magic and intuition.
That's how we roll.
Yeah.
That is how we roll. And then we've got a great guest here today, Tyrus. You'll recognize him from Fox News. Got a great story, a lot of interesting stuff. You talked a little wrestling with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. He was in WrestleMania and Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And he talks about the old days.
Yeah.
His interview was in and out a little bit. We didn't have the greatest connection, so some of it may not have made it to the final cut, but I think you'll be very interested in what Tyrus has to say.
Yeah, no, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. So with all of that, I'd like to thank our big sponsor. We've got to, listen, we've had a lot of good sponsors here and a lot of products that we've been introduced to that we kind of like. Qualia Senolytic.
Yeah.
Is the next one. And this deal, fellas, there it is. If you can see it on our, it's a series of pills. So this thing is like an anti-aging situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which it helps if you get ahead of the process before you're an old person.
Mm-hmm.
If you get into this. And I've taken it. I don't know. But it feels like it working.
You look younger. They all say you're glowing.
Well, everybody says
that's what they all say.
Yeah.
Everybody says that.
You definitely look young for your age.
Well, I appreciate
it. Must be that.
It's glowing.
Well, there it is, Qualia Senolytic.
Yeah, they sent over a sample. I started taking it, and I say I'm pretty happy with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it to me, I feel younger, so I'm gonna say it's 100% attributed to that, and not the stress of daily life.
I have a message for like the CIA. And
oh my God, this is going to be so south.
And that is, if we could somehow get this product, which I believe works, into the White House mess, and we could deliver it to Joe Biden without his knowledge. Maybe put it in peanut butter.
Open the capsules and do the thing you do with your dog.
Just wait to his nap, where he falls asleep in the recliner in
then
front of a
jam
television.
the treat down his mouth.
Put it in peanut butter, and then put it in the back and run it onto his lip so that he has nothing to do. He doesn't have to chew it. He just slowly.
Specific.
I've done this with my dog many times.
It's oddly.
And then he slowly swallows it, and then maybe Joe Biden could get back his brain function, and our country would be in a better place.
Yeah. Well, it's better than the drugs they have, in theory, pump him full of before he has to talk and say some nonsense. So.
Yeah.
Well, typically you're the science guy. I appreciate the demonstration, which I do think has applicability here.
Yeah.
But as we age, everyone accumulates sentient body cells.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it ages you, right? These are cells that don't work.
Yeah.
And what this does is gets rid of that nonsense.
Yeah, cleans up the garbage, takes out the trash.
It takes out the trash. They're known as zombie cells.
Right. It's like what Trump always said about forest management. It's like you got to clear out the old brush.
There you go.
Dude,
You got to clear out the old brush. So if you want to think about it like that, that's what it's doing for the cells in your body.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
No forest fire because you've cleaned out the brush.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. But anyway, we've taken the thing. I don't know if I look younger or not, but I do know that it was painless, no side effect, feel great. I think it's a pretty good thing. It's worth trying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No question.
Don't you think about it?
Yeah, no question. I think that the whole concept of renewing your cells is a really good idea, and nobody has a better angle on it than them.
And, considering the paces we put our bodies through on a regular basis to deliver this program to you, I mean, we need it. And if you listen to this enough times, you need it.
It's true. I mean, to be honest with you, with us, we're working all day and then we do this. And so you go through a lot of stuff, you know. There's just some aging involved, the stress that you deal with all day, and you're trying to get out a good product. This thing says it has you people feeling 15 years younger.
Let me just tell you, I took it, and I actually feel a little better this morning.
Oh, dear.
I did. I do feel a little bit better. I feel a little younger.
There you go.
I think you look like $1 million.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I often hear I look young, and I think I look even younger today. I took a peek in the mirror, and I thought, my God, that man is younger.
What a handsome individual he must be. So, resist aging at the cellular level, and you got to try it. If nothing else, you've got to try it. Qualia Senolytic. Go to neurohacker.com/ruthless for up to $100 off. Use the code Ruthless at the checkout for an additional 15%. That's neurohacker.com/ruthless for an extra 15% off your purchase. Thanks to Neurohacker for sponsoring this episode. We've all done it. And I think we're going to like the results, fellas.
I think so.
I think we're going to like the results. So, should we get into what Wolf likes to refer to as the meat?
Yeah, I'm glad we're getting into it because I do have some very serious legal questions that I want to put to our legal expert.
I think so, too. So this is the Trump trial, obviously. The backdrop of this is they rested on Wednesday. Jury instructions were given on Thursday. The jury's gone out. You'll see a bunch of headlines from cable news about how the jury has done something. McDaniel, can you explain this?
Yeah. So most of this is nonsense. So cable news is like having to do their 24-hour coverage. So this morning it was, so we're recording this, you're hearing this the day after we're recording. So the big headline today is the judge gives jury instructions.
Yeah.
So it's you must find beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's headline, jury must find beyond a reasonable doubt. Like it's breaking news.
Yeah.
So,
which is like sort of a tenet of the justice system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that the jury must be unanimous. So, juries.
Well, and there was
wait a minute. I want to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because Jonathan Turley is an expert that I often follow. He's a Democrat. This is not a conservative Republican. And he pointed out something that the judge said that apparently only 4 people have to agree, and he's going to call that unanimous.
Yeah, what does this mean?
On an individual charge?
Yeah, it sounds, it's so convoluted, but I don't, 4 people doesn't sound unanimous to me.
Yeah, no, I mean the jury needs to be in a criminal trial. The jury needs to be unanimous for the ultimate verdict. So I'm not sure what the nuance is there, but no, that's.
Well, I'm sure because I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and I can tell you exactly what it is that he said. So basically, what the judge was referring to, recall, because when we had Andrew McCarthy on this show, the entirety of the counts rest in a felony area because the prosecutor had to link it to an underlying felony.
Right.
The underlying felony being some kind of a campaign finance or a federal crime. They're now saying could be a state crime that none of the state officials or none of the U.S. attorneys ever brought to trial because they didn't think that there was anything there, right? So what the judge said is you don't have to be unanimous about what the underlying crime
Got it. Okay.
is.
Yeah.
Okay? So the underlying crime, 4 of you could think it was a federal felony, 4 of you could think it was a state felony. That part, whatever you come up with, as long as it's a crime, we're good. The secondary part, the point that Trump is actually charged with, you got to have unanimity.
So this is like the falsifying business records component of it.
Exactly.
Right. It's
And-
the crime in service of this other crime that no one prosecuted.
Right,
Yeah.
because just to review one more time, in order for it to be a felony in New York State, the crimes that were charged of falsifying business records of 39 or 41 different counts or something like that, all of that has to be in service of an underlying crime. The underlying crime has never been prosecuted, much less adjudicated or found guilty of, which is why guys like Jonathan Turley and guys like Andrew McCarthy have been so critical of this entire prosecution, because it rests upon an unproven point. But the judge is saying, like, let's set that underlying piece aside. That part you don't have to agree on as long as there was a crime. The secondary part of whether or not you are charged with falsifying business records, that's got to be in there.
So, to me, that seems insane. Is that normal?
It's insane.
So that's the appellate issue, right? So that's, if Donald Trump is convicted, that's what's going to go up on appeal.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to go. It even might be a federal question enough to get to the Supreme Court if it works its way through the appellate system. But I think, as we talked about before, it doesn't really matter. I think Duncan has made this point a couple times, is that the only end game here for the left is just to get him convicted of a felony.
Yep.
So I actually asked Wolf ahead of time to get a little bit of background on some of the jurors. There was this great article in the New York Times about where the jurors got their news. And so,
is this graphic one?
Yeah, this is go ahead. So what you're seeing here is a graphic. So there are 12 jurors and then I guess 6 alternates. I'm assuming they dismissed the alternates. And of the 12 jurors, 9 of them get their news from the New York Times. And I think I'd mentioned once before, there is one guy who might be the foreman, juror number 1, who gets his news, or his or her news, from Fox News and the Daily Mail.
Also MSNBC.
And MSNBC. So a real kind of interesting juror there. So the most interesting thing about this is, look, this is going to be a real tough case to get a not guilty on, right?
Why, though?
Because you have
just because of the makeup of the juror?
9 of your jurors get their news from the New York Times. Well, and
they've been bombarded with this garbage for years now.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a pretty blue jury, and President Trump. The one problem with being present, so Judge Merchant required President Trump to be in court for the entire trial. That's discretionary. There's no mandate that a defendant has to be present. He decided that Donald Trump should be present. There's a chance that when you're doing a jury trial, jurors look at weird things. And jurors will oftentimes look at the demeanor of the defendant. So again, Trump, if you're in there 8 hours a day, if he's doodling or looking off, or if he gets mad, or when there's confrontation with the judge, jurors will often develop a prejudice against a defendant.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of times you don't bring cases as a prosecutor you don't think you're going to win. So that's another thing.
Yeah, but I mean, look, it seems at this point they were going to bring charges against this guy no matter what. I mean, it was
the guy's campaign promise.
Yeah.
Like all these prosecutors, there's video of them when they were running of being like, yep, I'm going to sue Trump. That's why you vote for me.
And the great irony? It's the Democrats who lecture us incessantly about the end of democracy. They're the ones who are corrupting democracy here.
So one thing, though, McDaniel, if we're trying to read the tea leaves here over the next day or 2 days or through the weekend and next week, depending on how long the jury is out, if you're trying to read those tea leaves about how this jury is leaning, what are you looking for?
So the quicker it goes, the worse it is for Trump.
Yeah.
Because that means they're not considering each of the 34 counts separately. They're going to do kind of a blanket decision. He's guilty. Let's just move forward.
Yeah, but what sort of jury questions would they ask that would help us glean where they're leaning?
So
underlying crime.
Getting back to, so just for those of you who might not know, the jury, once it's sent out, can sometimes ask clarifying questions to the judge. The judge will come in. He'll summon both sides. They'll craft an answer and give it back to the jury. So in this case, we're recording this at a time when they've just asked for a clarifying question about reading back Michael Cohen's testimony and part of the guy Pecker's testimony.
David Pecker, who was the publisher of the National Enquirer, who was accused of a catch and kill scheme as it dealt with Stormy Daniels' story.
Yeah. So there've been a couple interesting rulings by Judge Merchant in terms of what he sent to the jury. Having clerked for a judge, in criminal cases, you oftentimes will send the jury instructions back so that the jurors can kind of work off of it almost as a worksheet. He decided not to send back the written instructions. People online got a little bit mad about that, but it's purely discretionary. And then they're going to read the Pecker testimony and read part of the Cohen testimony. They're not sending it back with them, which is a little interesting. But the big question, Duncan, to your point, that we need to be watching for is the question about the underlying crime.
Okay.
Like, if they're starting to ask about the underlying crime, that means they're considering,
whether or not this thing should actually have been tried in the first place.
Yeah.
Or they might ask, is election? Watch for the verbiage of it. Like, is election interference a crime, or something like that? If they ask it that way, then they're probably considering that gets somebody to yes. So, broader 30,000-foot view here is, you only need one person to hold out to hang the jury.
Yeah.
Right. Either way. We either guilty or
What
not
is it?
guilty.
12 Angry Men. We all learned that in that
exactly.
old movie.
So that's what Trump is relying on here. I don't think you're going to get 12 votes for not guilty as to all charges. Right. I mean,
I remain optimistic. I'll be honest. You're right. Everything should tell you that this thing is rigged from the top, right? And that what they chose to prosecute was not the underlying crime or the crime that they're accusing of him, but rather character and underlying concerns that people might have about Donald Trump as a person. Like, do you hate Donald Trump to throw him in enough to throw him in jail? It's never been about the law, right? Which the law, I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer to figure out it's on his side. The question is whether there are 12 people that are angry enough about his conduct to render a guilty.
Oh yeah, don't take this as me saying Donald Trump is guilty. I'm saying it's
No.
in the tea leaves. I actually think Donald Trump has a pretty good appellate argument, but that doesn't really help him when the
really
Democrats have
matters.
run 6 months of convicted felon Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And whether or not it gets overturned on appeal is sort of beside the point for the prosecution, because all they want is a lower court guilty verdict that they can take to the press and expect the New York Times will run with it.
Yeah, and look, the good thing for Trump is he's not going to walk out of there even if there's a guilty verdict, they're not going to walk him out in handcuffs. There'll be a pre-sentence investigation. There'll be time before sentencing. There'll be time to take his appeal, probably stayed pending appeal, given that he's a first-time nonviolent offender. There's unless something really strange happens, don't believe the hype you're hearing. Like, if you're listening to MSNBC, they're anticipating they're just going to drag him out behind the courthouse and shoot him.
Sing Sing by the afternoon.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
None of that's going to happen. It's even if he's found guilty, they're going to start running ads. But this will be kicked down the pike for a little bit.
Can I say so? Holmes, you said that you're still optimistic about it. I have to take the complete opposite tack. Just seeing the way things have been going for the past week has made me so pessimistic and kind of disappointed in the state of things, where I don't think this is even about Donald Trump anymore. It's just that the left wants nothing standing in their way. We've seen the Justice Department, to them, is just another little cog in a machine to do their bidding. Where the past week, you've had these hit job stories of like, oh, well, Alito sold 1,000 shares of Anheuser-Busch at a loss. Get him off the Supreme Court. You have justices saying, well, he flew the George Washington naval flag. He's got to be taken off. The multiple Democrat U.S. senators are saying, throw these people off the Supreme Court. They can't do their job as Supreme Court justices. It is that cynical for them.
Hey Smug, it's always interesting that these anti-Supreme Court stories always seem to drop right before the big cases.
Isn't that
Interesting, right?
June, they're deciding the January 6th case and the Donald Trump immunity case. It's really strange how these attacks against the Supreme Court, like the Clarence Thomas one, came out right before
It's
Roe.
almost like it's orchestrated.
It's really strange.
It's almost like there's
Weird.
this huge billion-dollar dark money network of left-wing groups funded by a Swiss billionaire who wants to undermine the Supreme Court and our democracy.
Well, you also wonder how it is that a Supreme Court decision could be leaked months before it actually was
Yeah.
rendered when it comes to the Dobbs case. But no, it was. I mean, all of this shit's orchestrated. I guess my only point is I just find it unfathomable that a jury of anyone could charge somebody and convict somebody of a felony that relates to an underlying crime that prosecutors never thought they could prosecute in the first place.
It's a shell
And that the
game.
judge says, listen, it doesn't matter what you feel about. It's like, saying, listen, I need a house built. It doesn't matter what the foundation's like. Just make me the damn house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's insanity.
I find it incredible. Anyway, we're going to stay up on all of that, but in the meantime, we talked about this a little bit last Thursday, and we're going to answer some of your questions. We had asked about whether or not Biden was going to be replaced at the convention. You guys threw out some amazing heat,
There's some
and
bangers.
we're going to get back to that. But in service of that, Dems are in full-blown freakout. And Duncan, I know that there was one article in particular that caught your eye.
Yeah, this is my freebasing cocaine article.
Otherwise known as crack.
This is from Politico. The headline, as you mentioned, is Dems in full-blown, quote, freakout over Biden. A pervasive sense of fear has settled in at the highest levels of Democratic Party over President Joe Biden's re-election prospects, even among office holders and strategists who had previously expressed confidence about the coming battle with Donald Trump. Now, I mean, we've talked about this a lot on the show here over the previous weeks, and we've played all of the clips. I mean, this is in Technicolor.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be an expert in politics or winning elections to know it doesn't look good for Joe Biden. I mean, I saw the polling average before the trial here in New York, and Donald Trump's numbers have actually gone up since this trial
driving him
has
crazy.
started. And Joe Biden has spent millions and millions of dollars in all of these swing states and convinced Bupkis
Well, it's gone negative.
negative. He's actually lost.
gone the other
I mean,
way.
he's at 36% approval.
But he brought in Robert De Niro. That's got to stand for something.
He did.
That guy's going to have to break a lot more fucking kneecaps in order to make this thing happen.
So this is the best quote in the entire thing, and I read this whole thing and I just laughed. But the best quote is this blind quote here from a strategist. Quote, donors ask me on an hourly basis about what I think, the advisor said, calling it, quote, so much easier to show them, so while they read it, I can pour a drink. The advisor added, the list of why we could win is so small, I don't even need to keep the list on my phone.
Dude. Oi!
Imagine how depressing that is that like you are going to like the upper echelons of the Democratic donor base, people who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and you're asking them for
Like,
that
what
money.
do we do? What do we do?
And you're supposed to paint a rosy picture about how you're going to win this election in the fall. And you got to pour yourself a drink, and you can't even put a list together of how we're going to win.
I mean, that's how bad it's gotten.
It's right. Here's an idea. How about don't ruin the country? How about don't let 20 million people walk across the border with reckless abandon? How about don't raise prices in every grocery store across this entire country?
Wait a minute. We're not trying to solve problems here. We're trying to win elections.
How about having a guy who's not in assisted living? For crying out loud.
That might help your numbers.
Just a typical candidate. Surely there's somebody. It's 330 million people in this country.
I mean, a place for mom is not a place on the top of the ticket.
Just think. I guess.
Place for Joe.
Think about it this way. Think about it this way. Your opponent is a guy who is currently on trial for felonies in New York, has spent the last month in court every single day. He can skip out on Wednesdays to host a rally with thousands of people. Your poll numbers have gone down. Your approval has gone down. You've spent millions of dollars, and you're still fucking losing.
And also, I might add, the campaign says this is not political whatsoever. They're selling a shirt on their campaign website being like available on Wednesdays, trying to make fun of Trump for, hey, look, you're on trial. And then they show up with Robert De Niro. Oh, it's not political.
No, I
We're
mean,
just
that's-
sending the campaign outside his trial.
That was the
they're
grave
full of
mistake
shit.
that was made by the Biden campaign. And it, like cutting through all of this, you can tell the fear.
Yes.
Having been in the center of a lot of different campaigns over the years. There are different aspects to it and different mentality that goes into what it is that you choose to do. And, you know, if you're out there pushing a message, you look like you're having fun, like chances are you feel pretty good about the way things are. When you have a strategy that is to try to contain the entirety of the legal troubles that Donald Trump has befallen Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And then at the last minute, you just completely sabotage 9 months worth of a position to put Robert De Niro
That's
out.
exactly it.
Like, it tells you everything that you need to know about the status of that campaign. They're scared shitless.
And
they think that they are totally screwed.
And the donors think it's a joke. I had to pull up the full article because there's another little vignette in here that's so fucking funny. So there's Maura Healey, who's the governor in Massachusetts, is headlining this fundraiser for Biden.
Okay.
And she says, quote, "To those of you who opened up your wallets, thank you. We'd like you to open them up a little bit more and to find more patriots who believe in this country, who recognize and understand the challenge presented at this time." Laughter rippled through the room.
Bro. That is a tough scene.
Open them up a little more.
Laughter rippled through the room.
Okay, patriots, dig deep.
I think that's called gallows humor.
That's hilarious.
I
They're
mean,
like, oh wait, that wasn't a joke?
Yeah.
You're being serious now?
I mean,
And that's the thing, is like you said, there's no plan that they're following. It's clear that it's like they're all in a house on fire. People are running around throwing bottles of water on the wall covered in flames. There's no playbook that they give up 9 months of saying, this isn't political. We don't discuss this. We're going to leave that, to the judge and the jury to decide. And then they show up with Robert De Niro, a Hollywood actor.
Well, Smug, there is a great quote here. I just love the positive, like, this guy's, like, grinning and just, like, crunching his teeth together. There's still a path to win this. But they don't look like a campaign that's embarking on that path right now.
So this guy, Pete Giangreco, who's a Democratic strategist who's worked on multiple presidential campaigns. I've never met this guy, but his point is right. He said, if the frame of this race is what was better, the 3.5 years under Biden or 4 years under Trump, we lose that every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
And that's right. He's telling the truth.
He's telling the truth.
And that's why, like McDaniel said,
Thank you, Richard Grieco. Or Nick Papagiorgio.
Richard Grieco, you had some good movies in the 80s. No, but that's what
Thank you, Richard Grieco. You see right through me.
But that's what, like McDaniel said, it's always in an election year they start attacking the Supreme Court. They have to come up with some issue to get Democrats to actually care, because if the issue is, was your life better when Trump was in office, or is your life better with Biden in office, it's clear cut. So that can't be the argument that they're trying to make.
Here's my question is, the Biden campaign has somebody who is like an attorney general and a tough prosecutor and was a senator from California. And yet they send Robert De Niro. They should have sent Kamala Harris. After the good work that she did on the
Because
border.
she's as popular as stage 3 cancer, and they know it.
Oh my God.
They just know it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the hidden secret to all this. They're like, oh, well, Kamala, and they don't talk about it. The reality is, as we've said many times on the show, the best insulation for Joe Biden that he ever had in his entire career was appointing her as vice president, because nobody wants him to leave.
Yeah.
Everybody's like,
point.
that could get worse. I can't believe how bad it is, but it could get worse.
Yeah.
And that's basically what they're dealing with. Even Nick Papagiorgio gets that.
Yeah.
Do you think they're gonna remove him?
So this is the question that we had.
Yes.
And last week, you'll recall, a whole bunch of you wrote in. By the way, thank you.
Yes.
Keep doing
We
that
love
with
seeing those
every single
comments.
question, because we actually read them all and we get some insight into it. Will he be replaced as the nominee? Should we start with the voice again, as we always do?
Yeah.
And I will add that we love all of these submissions, but if you want us to read them, like and subscribe.
There you go.
Like and
That's what
subscribe.
happens.
Like and subscribe.
And it's
if you,
free.
Yeah, doesn't
It's
cost
free.
anything.
Look at us doing this out of our own free
Right.
will, right? It's just because we like to add to the discourse.
Right. Like and subscribe if you wish to opine. To borrow from an old veteran of this industry. First one comes from Adam, XJ4BB. Adam writes, I reckon Biden stays on the ticket unless we can convince Michelle Obama to run, which seems unlikely. There's no other standout alternative. And how would they deal with the Kamala issue?
Yep.
Great point. As much to be lost is gained by changing at this late stage, I'm also suspicious of the polling. Potentially a lot of shy Biden voters out there, and Dems will turn out to vote, whoever the candidate.
Well,
I mean, they do have the whole vote blue no matter who.
So this is actually a good, not only comment, but a jumping off point of one of the things that we've talked about for a lot of episodes here, which is do not have irrational exuberance over this situation. What you're looking at with an awful lot of these state-based and national polls is an undersampling or a lack of consolidation of a traditionally Democratic vote. When you see the African American vote at like 68%, don't trust the top line. It is never going to be 68%. Now, do I think that Donald Trump has made inroads there? Potentially. But recall, they need 85. Democrats need 85 or 86%. And that is literally the line of demarcation for where they win or lose elections. They have never, since 1968, gotten less than that. So there's an awful lot of history that would suggest that it's a reconsolidation. Our experience with Pennsylvania last cycle sort of reaffirms that in a lot of ways. Like, do not think that Democrats are just not going to vote here. They're going to vote. You got to stay vigilant.
Yeah.
I just had one question about Adam's point here is shy Biden voters. Man, I can't think of a more depressing thing. It's like, oh, I don't want to like gain anything, but I'm quietly going to vote for Biden.
But I get it as a concept because we dealt with this in 2016 with shy Trump voters.
But shy Trump makes sense though.
Yeah, it made sense because
you don't want to offend your community, but his point is that if your community is offended by Joe Biden at this point, like what else do you got?
Yeah.
If you're concerned about your country club and you're not voting for Joe Biden,
but you're thinking about it the wrong way. I think you're thinking about it as the suburban voter, and I'm thinking about it as a progressive voter, right? Like people who are like,
got it.
He didn't do enough on student loans, or he's not supporting the Hamas terrorists enough, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine?
And like at the end of the day, yeah, you probably are.
He's right. They're that nutty.
You're going to pull the lever for Joe Biden, but that is the sort of
especially in a binary choice.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like that is the profile of a shy Biden voters because like the info flow is dog shit for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So culturally, these people in their communities, socially, aren't going to be like, yeah, I'm all in for Joe, right?
Yeah. No,
but
that's right.
But they aren't the suburban voter. They are that other contingency, the people who are Marxists who hate America.
Yeah, I don't think that they're a majority maker, but I certainly think that.
But they're that coalition that hasn't come together.
It would be the difference between ballot parity for the decision makers,
Yeah.
or blow up. Mm-hmm. Right?
That's a great comment, Adam. Thank you very much for sending it in.
All right, Dunks, what do we got?
George McKenzie 473. Brilliant podcast as always. Fellas, do I think Biden will be on the ballot in November? No. Part of it has to do with the timing of the first presidential debate. We've talked about this on the show. This is a great comment. Why in June?
Yep.
So that Trump can put Biden's ineptness off prompter in full display. Then Dems can pull the convention switcheroo. This is the Ashbrook theory from the beginning. I think Trump might be better served to actually force Biden to hold off on debates until after the conventions.
That's a good tactical
I mean, it's
question.
good. It's an excellent take. It's a well-informed take. It's one that we've talked about a lot. My sense is him standing up straight and delivering an opening, closing statement does the trick.
Yeah, the expectations could not be lower.
It is. The one thing I would say is it's a high wire act for Joe Biden. it's also a gift to Joe Biden that Trump gave him this opportunity. He didn't have to. Like, he could have sat on his hands and been like, this isn't my problem. You wanting to debate early is not my problem. Like, languish in this dog shit polling, languish in your coalition fracturing, languish in the talking heads on media every day talking about how you can't do the job. Trump kind of gave him a little bit of a gift by giving him the opportunity to prove people wrong. And like you said, the bar is on the fucking floor. Like, if he does stand up there and deliver basic sentences, they will declare him competent and the winner of the debate.
No question about it. All right, we got a third comment in here. Smugglesworth.
So this is from Rhonda 2580. Rhonda writes, Biden won't voluntarily step aside. His ego would never allow it. And I think that if the Dems had another candidate lined up, we would already be seeing a prominent Dem showing up in the left-wing press. Also, I think that Biden has already gotten us to such a terrible status, economy, border, foreign policy. Yeah. No Dem would even consider stepping into that mess. That's a great point.
Yeah.
I hadn't actually
That's
thought
a
about
great
that.
point.
Our listeners are
Rhonda.
the smartest people
They really
in
are.
politics. It's incredible.
Since they would be saddled with the blame of not fixing it when it becomes impossible.
I'm with Rhonda.
yeah, that is a
Rhonda's
great
got it.
point.
Well, and also Newsom tried
Really?
this. Like, he tried this trial balloon and got fucking slapped down by Biden and everybody. Off, not they were blind quotes, but everybody was like, this guy's a little too ambitious. People don't actually like him. He's a sociopath, all this sort of stuff. And it was all coming from Kamala World, remember?
Well, maybe they do get rid of Biden and replace him with Kamala so that she loses to Trump and then they're done with her forever.
Wouldn't that be great?
It's a real long game.
Yeah, that's a real long game.
Real long game.
Oh, man.
Smash, I love it. But listen, you can tell how seriously we take these comments. I mean, we really read every single one of them. It changes my thought process a lot from you all when you send this in. So we have a new question. And it was based on our first segment. Will a guilty verdict change your vote? Will a guilty verdict in the New York Trump trial change your vote? Now, Democrats have banked. They've literally, their entire campaign is based on the answer to that question being yes. The preponderance of the data from the beginning of the indictments to today would suggest the alternative.
Yeah.
That if anything, it's made Trump stronger. What we're wondering about is that sort of center of the electorate. Like, if you're a Trump diehard, I don't expect that this would do anything more than just revalidate the reasons for you to vote. But if if you were like a DeSantis supporter in a primary, or if you were Nikki Haley supporter, like, does this make a material difference, knowing what you know about the trial and knowing about all of the atmospherics that Robert De Niro and everything else that have gone into it, ultimately what a verdict might be? If it's a guilty verdict, does it change?
And again, that's the thing is, it doesn't need to be like you end up voting for Biden. It could be you end up not voting.
Yeah.
Or comment with what Hollywood celebrity you would like to see that would help you change your vote. and maybe the Biden campaign will look. Or is there, or if you're on the fence, is there a celebrity that Trump needs to roll out in order to get your vote? Because that's how it all works. It's all based on celebrities.
I mean, would it be hilarious if, like, Pesci came back at De Niro and was like, "Go fuck yourself"?
Right. Well, I
They were
mean,
full, like,
yeah, but it's Joe Biden.
The pen?
It's,
Like in Goodfellas?
it's Joe Biden. He's likely to roll out Joan Crawford or Gina Lola Brigida. Some of his contemporaries.
his contemporaries are mostly past.
Before they were called the talkies,
Exactly.
Charlie Chaplin, ladies and gentlemen.
You might get confused for don't want that endorsement.
God. All right, so let's do quickly the Gaza Pier.
Oh, yeah.
Fellas, so we talked about this last week, or 2 weeks ago, in that the entirety of the Biden plan, not just as it relates to Israel and the Palestinians, but everything, has been to satisfy niche constituencies within the United States. The only reason you would ever imagine you withdrawing from Afghanistan to try to meet a 20th anniversary for 9/11 was a niche constituency within the United States. It had nothing to do, obviously, 13 service members were killed as a result of that shit decision. But everything that he has done is in satisfaction towards these niche constituencies. And so what happened with his initial steadfast, what did he call it, rock solid or
Turns out it wasn't too rock solid.
Yeah, rock solid support of Israel. Then he got some college protests in some constituencies in Michigan and other places that had a problem with that. So he's like, I got an idea. We're going to build a pier to deliver resources in Gaza. Mm-hmm. Terrific work. We've done some research here on the program.
Yes.
Wolf, amongst many, is, he's sort of a logistics guy. Mm-hmm. Turns out that he did this thing in Afghanistan, in Iraq, has some idea of what we're talking about, knows who to ask these questions. Mm-hmm. Turns out the system that they installed, it's known as J-Lots.
Okay.
It was intended to replace facilities inside a harbor, of which this is not.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so not on a coast.
Not
where
on a
waves
coast.
are pounding.
This is not just open water.
It was never meant to be used in open water. Biden would have been advised of this. He says that, like, we've talked to people who say that this is like common knowledge. It's not like you're just coming up with, well, maybe it doesn't work in open. They've tested it. Like, they know that it doesn't work in open water, but they did it anyway. And yet they chose to risk the safety of American service members anyway.
That's a theme now. For their little show, they're willing to risk lives of service members.
And not just risk lives of service members. That is a fucking horrible thing. But they have spent hundreds of millions of your tax dollars.
At least $320 million.
On a pier they know would fail. On aid they know wouldn't go to the Palestinians in Gaza, but would be taken by Hamas. Hundreds of millions of dollars to what? Win some more votes from people who support terrorists in Dearborn, Michigan?
Yeah.
I mean, how fucking offensive is that?
Yep.
I mean, Donald Trump got impeached for taking a phone call from Ukraine.
Perfect call.
And this guy is spending hundreds of millions of dollars of your taxpayer money trying to placate fucking terrorists for his reelection, and nobody bats an eye. It's fucking insane.
It is insane.
He'll spend billions of your taxpayer money to give to college loan forgiveness to get the kids to vote for him. He was like, listen, you got a shit NYU degree. I'm going to have working class Americans send their tax money to pay off your bills.
But just to break this down before we go to our next, they knew from the jump that UN aid historically had been hijacked by Hamas in its attempt to get to the Palestinian people. They knew that. We talked about it to no end in the fall and winter of last year. They knew that. Their way around that was apparently to create a pier that was never meant to be created where they created it, which summarily broke apart, and anything that actually made it off of that pier was hijacked.
Yeah.
I mean, are you kidding me? So you have this.
I saw this posted online.
You brought this. Do you want to know where this aid is actually going? Can we get to this? Do we have this
clip
audio? Let's get this thing. It's to set up fucking rockets.
Yeah,
You gotta be kidding me.
For our audio listeners, what you're watching is Hamas people using those aid bags that they stole to line up rockets. That's what they're doing with it. They're getting their bombs together. They're like, hey, you know what we can do with this aid? Instead of giving it to people, it's good for making bombs on top of them. Like, this is unreal. And that's your tax money.
This is your government. This is your government. They're actually spending hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money on a pier that they knew wouldn't work, to a delivery mechanism they knew would be hijacked, and using the actual product to set up missiles against our sworn ally. Are you fucking kidding? Like, this is unbelievable.
It should be a huge scandal. It should be a huge scandal.
And let's just approach this from the other perspective too. Imagine that you're actually you really want aid to come into Gaza and Rafah and the suffering Palestinian people. How do you let Joe Biden get away with this? If you're a liberal Democrat, if you're a member of the squad, if you're a member of Congress, how are you not also calling for investigations into this? Because none of the aid is getting to the people who were supposed to go to. So it's the worst of both possible worlds. Not only are they incompetent, but they're deliberately incompetent.
The answer, McDaniel, is they don't actually care. They're getting paid by left-wing dark money to camp out on college campuses,
and they don't care. They don't care about the people of.
They don't even know what they're talking about.
Gaza. They don't care about the Palestinian people. I mean, like, that's the dirty little secret of this whole thing. Is all they want is the destruction of Israel. Like you've said 1,000 times, Ashbrook, it's not like these people on college campuses are chanting two-state solution. Right. All of this is about the destruction of Israel. They don't give a fucking shit about the people that are in Gaza at all.
Right, they don't care.
If they cared, they would have released the hostages and surrendered.
We're talking about a ceasefire after the worst terrorist attack since 9/11.
Yeah.
They want a ceasefire now. They want to stop the violence.
Yeah.
How many fucking rockets have been lobbed from Gaza into Ashkelon into Israel? I didn't see protests on college campuses then, because those have been happening for years. Of course, there was not a single protest about all the violence that was happening in the Middle East when they were lobbing missiles into Israel. It's only when Israel suffers a terrorist attack and decides to do something about it that suddenly all these dipshit Marxists on college campuses wake up and decide, now we need a ceasefire. I mean, these people are so fucking disingenuous.
It blows the mind.
It does.
It blows the mind. But the umbrella fact pattern is true in that they are running a foreign policy for the United States that placates niche constituencies within the Democratic Party.
No, this is a great
That
point.
is the single most dangerous thing I can ever imagine any administration to do. You can say what you will about, I mean, look, I think the open border is actually more significant. But you can say what you will about their economic sabotage of this country by shutting down domestic energy and opening up, Chinese imports and all of this other. You can talk about all that all you want. There is nothing worse than at its threshold, your decision making that revolves around placating insane 10% or less segments of a political party in order to do the business of the United States with the rest of the world. That is, I think that shit's impeachable.
The inmates are running the asylum.
Right. I think that is the worst possible.
If it's not impeachable, it's definitely disqualifying.
Disqualifying.
It is disqualifying.
Yeah, no question about it. Anyway, that's all of our serious stuff for today. I think we've got a lot of it. But I do want you to send in your comments about...
will it change your vote?
Will it change your vote? Will it change your vote on the conviction?
Hey folks, my friends at Americans for Prosperity are again on the front lines fighting against the border crisis. It's clear the politicians aren't going to solve this on their own. It's going to take good old-fashioned grassroots activism, and that's what AFP specializes in. Americans for Prosperity Foundation has taken hundreds of concerned citizens to see the border for themselves, turning them into informed activists. And Americans for Prosperity knows just what we need: more border agents, more walls, and more technology. That's what makes Americans for Prosperity unique. They do the tough work of organizing and mobilizing everyday Americans to make a difference. In fact, they just announced a major campaign to hold Biden and his allies accountable for the crisis at the border. Learn more at securebordersecureamerica.com. That's securebordersecureamerica.com.
Anyway, I think we should play a game, fellas.
Let's play a game.
You want to play a game? Let's play a game. We got King of the Hill back.
We have King of the Hill. This is our signature game for all of our new listeners, of which there are many. Many people are saying. Thousands of new listeners. And again, we said it at the top of the show, but thank you. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on like Apple Podcasts and you're not subscribing to the show and you randomly got this on your homepage, like, subscribe to the show. It's important to us. And the reason why I say that is because we have so many new listeners. I want to do a little bit more on the game because people might not know what it is, right?
Yeah.
All right, so King of the Hill is our signature game. What it is that there's two contestants who play takes, tweets from people who were former Republicans who've lost their minds in the era of Donald
These
Trump.
are people who made a living for like 20 plus years as a quote unquote conservative on national airwaves and in publications. They were the person who showed up in the 5th paragraph of every story. They're the people that did the panels as the token conservative on MSNBC, some on Fox and CNN. And ultimately, because of the era of Trump, they became lunatics.
Lost their minds.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
Yeah.
And so we played this whole game based on seeing who is the bigger hack in that world.
Yes.
And I have the champion, who is Bill Kristol. And I've been on quite a run with him.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, look, you've played him brilliantly.
Thank you.
And this is a good era for him because there's a lot of confluence of things that he gets involved with that are
and he's
direct contradiction to where he used to be.
And he's a Renaissance man. He really is.
And you've got a challenger, Holmes?
I do. It's Steve Schmidt.
Steve Schmidt.
Yeah, an old friend.
Steve Schmidt.
An old friend.
Okay. Well, let's go ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. In the red corner, fighting out of his porch in Utah, the old fat man, Steve Schmidt. And now, in the blue corner, fighting still from Pier Dyer's checkbook, and current champion of the world, Bill War Now, War Forever, Caristo.
Let's go.
Best in the business.
Let's go.
For the fans, hearing Ashbrook do it live in one take, this man is a genius.
This man is so good. And I'll be honest, I choose Steve when I can, so I can hear the old fat
The old fat man.
fat man.
Nothing beats it.
Oh, it's just such right from the gullet. Good diaphragm.
It's good.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
good.
So I'm the judge today.
Yeah.
And I think we go to the champion first.
That is correct. Nikki Spaghetti, can I get exhibit number 6? Bill Kristol writes, kind of amazing for a Supreme Court justice to fly an appeal to heaven flag whose spirit is hostile to the constitutional order and the rule of law that the Supreme Court is to uphold.
I mean, shameless liars. What?
It is a Revolutionary War flag. It is foundational to our Constitution. We wouldn't have a constitutional order if it wasn't for the people who believed in a flag like the Appeal to Heaven flag. It goes back to like John Locke and the creation of our country. Bill Kristol is so fucking ignorant, it is incredible.
A flag, I might point out, that until 6 hours prior to our recording was flown in front of the Capitol of San Francisco.
Yeah, that's right. No, but that is the funniest thing in all of this, and it's not
It's like
just
Stalin. They have the photo disappears. Like,
Yeah.
what flag?
I'm
not the MAGA battle flag.
I'm not trying to filibuster this whole thing, but it is so funny how it disappears from our discourse. Like things that were common and obvious about our shared experience of what it means to be an American. The second that the liberals think it can be a MAGA extremist thing, Wikipedia pages get rewritten, flags get taken down, and they suddenly decide things are terrorism.
That's
that is
dude.
the sickest thing in our country right now, is the way they pervert culture. It's insane.
Okay.
Dude, nailed it.
Thank you,
That's
champion.
a strong argument.
It is a strong argument.
Thank you, champion, to our challenger.
I will provide additional voluminous text.
Okay.
With Exhibit 1, please. The insurrectionist justice. Samuel Alito,
Good
the appeal to heaven flag is a piece of American history and glory that has been perverted and defiled by the Trump MAGA extremists as a fascist calling card announcing support for the 1/6/21 coup. I'm not done. Like the Gadsden flag, it stands for one thing. Trump plus Alito has hoisted this MAGA flag to the top of its mast, replacing the American flag. There's no evidence of that, by the way. This unfit man has corrupted the court and, along with Clarence Thomas, has immolated its credibility.
Speaking of immolated their credibility,
Dude, I love this so much in that he has taken the argument that Bill Kristol made, which is a very valid and totally crazy one, like absolutely crazy, and is a winner here, but he has applied to it a perverted fascist calling card to it. It's a calling. Did we know that? Did we know that we had the calling card available in front of the San Francisco court?
It's like a second ago, Duncan said, like, the left likes to take the next step and then they try to rewrite history. That's what Schmidt is doing right there. In that tweet right there, where he even goes so far as being like, the Gadsden flag is a MAGA battle.
But not only that, he tosses in Clarence Thomas at the end.
Bailiff. Thank you.
May I offer a counterpoint?
No, you may not.
No counterpoint.
Thank you, Bailiff.
Yeah,
I appreciate your analysis.
I'm the bailiff here.
I'm sorry,
There's no
but
counterpoint.
this is the end of round one.
The judge is
That
ruled.
is
And Bill
incredible.
Kristol, the champion, came with an incredible take out of the gate. But that take was taken to the next level by Steve Schmidt, our challenger. And so for that reason, Steve Schmidt wins round one, and I go to the challenger for the beginning of round two.
I'm going to begin, when it gets back to me, I'm going to begin with what would have been my challenge, because this is insane.
Wow.
It's
You better not.
unnecessary.
I don't care if I lose.
Unnecessary counsel.
I think it's a decent thing to allow a counterpoint, but that wasn't provided by the judge. I think this is a rigged
This is
court.
a courtroom.
I guess this is Judge Mershon.
Yeah, you
running
should go
this
out in
thing.
front of the court every day and like.
Okay. Challenger.
I'm going to stay on genre. Exhibit 2, please. There has been another report of a flag related to January 6th and the MAGA movement flying outside Justice Samuel Alito's home. Alito is unfit to serve as justice. He is a MAGA revolutionary in a robe.
This is so
So here's
insane.
the context that I'm going to provide for this. Most of our listeners who've been around for a long time know that I worked with Steve. We worked with Steve early on in my career. He was a conservative communicator. What he specialized in was confirming Supreme Court justices. You want to know when it is that I worked with
No, wait, was
Steve
it the Alito
Schmidt?
confirmation?
Samuel
Are you for real?
Alito.
Wow.
Samuel Alito.
That is genuinely jaw-dropping.
And I've got
What
stories for
a hack,
days,
dude.
about the lengths of which we went with Steve Schmidt calling the shots to try to protect Samuel Alito in what was a very contentious hearing before the United States.
Why would Steve Schmidt support a MAGA revolution?
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you.
That is some stunning.
Thank you for that
stunning
take.
shit.
We turn to our champion for his second round submission.
Well, much like Steve Schmidt's first round submission, it's sound and fury signifying nothing. I think my first round was superior because
Wow.
because
We
Bill
went backwards.
because
Oh, it's just-
because Bill Kristol said that the appeal to heaven flag was against our constitutional order. He didn't say it was perverted by MAGA people.
Can we wrap this up? You're supposed to have your second round take.
My
Tell
whole,
us about the 2020 election.
my whole thing here is that what Steve Schmidt does is provide a lot of pomp and circumstance to an overall a warmed over take. It is nothing like what I'm offering here in round 2, which is exhibit number 5. And it's very simple. Liz Cheney stands alone.
Good God.
Bill Kristol put this up after Nikki Haley endorsed Donald Trump. Liz Cheney stands alone. It requires no pomp. It requires no circumstance. It requires no sound and no fury. It simply is.
It also requires no extended thought by the judge and jury in this courtroom, and as interesting as the Alito blast is in the background that
Yeah, I enjoyed
Steve
the lore.
Schmidt's counselor provides, nothing stands alone, quite like Liz Cheney in that take, and that's why
Thank
in the
you.
second round goes
Ooh,
to Bill
let's go into
Kristol.
third.
Well, as much as I would like to dispute the lore aspect, which I think added value to this program,
We're not denying this.
Unlike my co-counsel, I will respect the decision-making of this
Wow,
judge
look
and
at that.
jury,
That's
and will
classy.
be happy to move
Well,
on to round 3.
What I notice is that you didn't ask permission to speak.
It's
You were
still
just
going.
granted it.
To the rubber match.
still
round
bitching.
3. Round
This
3.
is unbelievable.
Round
I
three.
thought I was being polite.
Bill
No, I
Kristol.
think you're out of order.
What's your take?
You're out of order. I fucking love this game. This is so much fun.
Bill Kristol, what's your take? Round
Okay.
3.
Okay. Nikki Spaghetti, can I get exhibit number 7? So this is Bill Kristol in the year of our Lord 2024. On Memorial Day, deciding he would like to dredge up some conjecture about Donald Trump, rather than celebrating like the people who lost their lives defending our country. Memorial Day weekend when we're barbecuing and we're watching the Indianapolis 500.
Michael.
Hey, Judge, bailiff, does anybody want to step in and
I'm
stop?
just registering a
Continue with your submission, Counselor.
Okay. Here's what Bill Kristol thinks is important on Memorial Day. Memorial Day 2017. Then President Trump turns to General John Kelly as they stand amongst the graves of those killed in Afghanistan and Iraq in Section 60 of Arlington National Cemetery and says, I don't get it. What was in it for them?
That's been proven false.
Yes.
This guy's straight up lying.
Yes. And this is what he decides to put out for his Memorial Day message. In the year of our Lord, 2024.
I think I blacked that out.
That's pretty low.
It must be an election year.
It's gotta be.
It's sick. It's sicko stuff.
It is sick. It is sick.
Sicko stuff.
They don't want to talk about Biden checking his watch.
I'm going to stay on
Okay.
genre.
Round 3, Steve Schmidt.
Exhibit 3, please, Spaghettis. A flag synonymous with Christian nationalism flew at Leonard Leo's home, just like Justice Alito. The meaning is sinister. These flags are a declaration of hostility towards the United States of America, where freedom means freedom for everyone.
This is just so deranged.
Just a one-hit wonder
He's
in
talking
3
about-
different tweets.
He's talking
He's got
about
one topic.
the appeal to heaven, and he's saying flat out a flag synonymous with Christian nationalism flew in front of. So Leonard Leo, for those of you who are not familiar with Leonard Leo, he is somebody who's incredibly influential in the conservative world. He sort of was the head of Federalist Society for a lot of years, helped consolidate thinking around originalist, constitutionalist, judicial appointments that has since been accepted by a whole lot of others, thanks to Mitch McConnell and others, that gave rise to the appointments from President Trump. Now, he's since been a boogeyman of the left because it was quite successful, and it turns out people like to read the law and interpret the Constitution instead of just making it up as they go. So now he's become a big problem. Well, it turns out that he has a flag. A private citizen who's not been elected or appointed to a single thing has a flag that would appeal to heaven, and good Lord, that should say it all.
I mean, that's the thing is, when they can't talk about, is your life better under Biden than it was under Trump, they just smear and lie. I mean, that's their only playbook.
The meaning is sinister.
Like, Christian nationalism.
The meaning is sinister.
It's like, listen to yourselves.
I would like McDaniel to note that I did not at one point interrupt his entire speech, unlike in my speech, which was interrupted multiple
Okay,
times.
Mom is proud. You did good.
McDaniel, did you note that?
Did you note that?
So noted.
Is it
So
so
noted.
noted?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor.
I just want to know.
Counselor, I applaud your effort. It was valiant. And the third round submission was something to behold. The fact that Bill Kristol got up on Memorial Day and the first thing that came to his mind was, I'm going to dunk on Donald Trump with some fake quote from years and years ago. Outrageous. Also par for the course.
You like the
From Bill
warmed
Kristol.
over take
Wow.
of the same
I
take for
didn't
see
three,
this one coming.
the 3 in a row?
Listen,
This
you
is
might as
a
well
row
make
on the
3
flag.
for 3 with your whining and
The 3,
complaining about
This is
You like
justice
his 3
rendered.
takes on the flag?
Michael, you should appeal to heaven
I
about
should.
this.
I should. I appeal to a higher
Appeal to heaven,
higher
Michael.
court.
But
I
in-
appeal to the highest court.
And what's your ruling, Judge?
But in this court, there is one ruling.
That's right.
Disgusting.
This is the people's court.
This is the
Disgusting.
People's Court.
And
Watch your tone, Counselor.
I don't care.
It's strict.
This is a kangaroo court.
The irony, of course, is that strict constructionism is what given rise to this conversation, and
That's
that's
right.
what we have here as a verdict on the Ruthless Variety program.
And that's why Steve Schmidt wins round 3, and with it,
Wow.
Outstanding.
Wow.
Outstanding.
Takes the
Great
Judge
job.
championship.
Merchant Ashbrook.
Disgusting. I think it was his worst of the 3, to be honest with you.
You have no opinion to render, so
Rigged court. Like Donald Trump, I have been found guilty.
If you
in a
disagree,
rigged court.
if you disagree with Ashbrook's ruling, please like the stream and comment down below.
That's right.
I want to hear that.
Subscribe. It's free.
Subscribe. The more subscriptions we get, the more Ashbrook will be overturned by popular appeal.
Yes.
All right, we got to go to our guest, Tyrus. I can't wait for you to hear this. Let's get right to it. I want to welcome to the program somebody you're going to immediately recognize. He's been all over Fox News for a long time. Very entertaining dude. Great backstory and what he's been up to over the years. We find it absolutely fascinating. Not to mention just totally entertained by the guy. He's the host of Outkick's Maintaining with Tyrus, amongst many, many other Fox News products. Tyrus, how are you, sir?
Maintaining, man. How are you guys?
Maintaining. I love it. Well, thanks for doing this, bud. Like I said, we hadn't met before, but followed your work for a long time. Seems like you're a busy man.
Yeah, probably too busy. But unfortunately, in the world of entertainment, it's all or nothing. You don't ever get to space things out. You'll have 17 jobs in 1 week, and then you won't have nothing for the rest of your life. So you're just constantly on the go. That's why you guys were asking me, like, hey, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, bro, whatever's in front of me. It's a good time to be, considering how expensive stuff is. It's nice to be like busy working, but between my stand-up shows and my responsibilities at Fox, I got, making sure you just can't show up. I just can't
Totally
go film and be like this, huh?
I didn't read the newspaper today. Sorry, Greg.
Yeah. What was that? Trump did what? So it's not like, you could just, especially when I always live by the thing, like in this business, you're one bad joke away or one sincere comment away from being done.
No
so
question.
You have to be on your toes. You can't argue with the wife all day and then go on TV. And which I've done on several occasions. Actually, some of my best work is when I'm in Dutch at home. But
yeah, you get yourself all wound up and then turn the camera on. It's great stuff.
Well, not just that, is I also use the show for arguments, to win an argument. So there was a huge controversy on Gutfeld for about 6 months where I had one pant leg up in my sweats, and everybody was trying to figure out what that meant, what gang I belonged to.
Oh, God.
What message I was sending to my training brethren in the hills as we get ready for the revolution. Which really upset me because I'm like, we don't have to train.
Been there, done that.
Like if it was a straight up street fight between the Republican Party and the progressive, I feel really good about our chances. I don't think without.
I feel really good about you being on the front lines of that situation.
I don't even think anyone would be on the front lines. I think it'd be a lot of, are they just going to sit there and scream or are they going to fight? So I think it would be confusing. But based off the pamphlet protesters, I just don't feel the need to go train in the hills to get ready. I think we could.
Well, if I'm a blue-haired,
but again, that's the level of what we're dealing with. There's always these. They hate movies, but they live in fantasy. Like it's crazy to me how you see all the talk lately. So at least it's entertaining. Like I learned something new that's not remotely true every day, which is interesting to say the least about the times we live in.
Tyrus, I was going to say, if I'm a blue-haired, skinny lib who didn't eat meat, and I was facing up against a guy like you, I think I would be terrified because you have been in a number of scraps through your career. Of course, before Fox, you were a wrestler and became famous for it. You were in WrestleMania.
Well, wrestling is simulated scraps. Now, you want to talk about me as a bodyguard or me as was still a bodyguard. I just worked for individuals that didn't exactly claim their taxes. We'll just say that. But yeah, real fights. Yeah.
Well,
when I was the bodyguard for a guy who only had me there for the look because he had about 6 or 7 guys sprinkled around the club with pistols. So, but he just needed the 6'8" monster look to let everybody know he was important like that. Yeah, but you get in some real fights and working clubs in LA. This is back before everybody filmed and got lawyers. It's his butt handed to him at the bar. Usually, next time he sees you, he wants to buy you a beer. That's how alpha males work.
Yep.
We don't talk about being triggered or, or ask for the safe space or reparations because he's pretty sure his mother felt it when I hit him. Like things like that. We don't look at. So I just look and laugh at the fake, because we're so spoiled. We're so fat and happy now. Mm-hmm. We can cry about anything and because being a victim is just awesome right now. It used to not be fashionable, but we see it with the protesters who were like, they will take another group's issues and make it their own, even if it doesn't fit. Like, what my favorite group was it? Queer for Palestine is my favorite group.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. Wild.
Second to them is Hens for Chick-fil-A. But
yeah.
It's like, it just kills me that being a victim is more important. Being a victim is more important than truth or anything else. So as we see a lot of that, and I see it starting to change because I think regular people are starting to get tired of it. So I think that's the good news we're seeing. And this trial is kind of, I think, is the centerpiece of everyone going, what are we doing? Like, I think we're going to get a big reset after this. I think the adults in the room are coming back.
I think you're right. We want to get to the trial in a minute, but Ashbrook here is a resident wrestling fan. He wants to hit up on that a little bit.
Well, yeah, so I like a lot of people who listen to the show. I grew up watching WWF. Of course, they changed the name. Watching WCW.
Well, they got the F out. Yes, it was a great camp. Got the F out.
Yeah,
I thought that was clever.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, I'm not the only guy here who watched WrestleMania, watched Royal Rumble, all of that growing up.
Oh, everyone did.
Everybody watched that. So can you just give us a little bit of a flavor for behind the scenes at WrestleMania, one of the greatest events that happens every year?
Behind the scenes at WrestleMania? Absolutely not.
He wants to remain employed. Smash.
No, that's not even the point. Here's the deal. Like, and obviously, if either one of you read any of my books, I always talk about there's certain things that is nobody's business. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't earn the right to be in that locker room, or you didn't earn the right to be in that green room, or whatever the case may be, some things are left unsaid. Mm. And when I was writing my book, they were like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Why can't I?" This is the part of the story you're allowed to know. The rest is classified because you didn't earn the right to be in that locker room. Because I feel like it's go get it. But it's like performing in front of a city. Just imagine and judge you on how you get your hot dog. They'll cheer you, some will boo you, and you will feel what is best described as like a electric heat around you with so many eyes on you. That's probably when I walked out with Alberto Del Rio against Edge and Christian in Atlanta at WrestleMania. That probably was like the one moment where I was like, and Stephanie McMahon gave me really good advice. She said, there's going to become a point where you're going to have to remind yourself to breathe. And I was like, yeah, right, man. It can't be that. I walked out there and they're booing the hell out of me. And I turned and looked and I was like, something's wrong. I can't. Oh, shit, I need to breathe. And I tell myself to breathe, but great group of guys. Like I said, and I'm old school. The guys I grew up watching were the guys I looked for when I was in the WWE. Howard Finkel, rest his soul. I don't think he ever got a moment. Every time I was on the road and he was there, he had to tell me a Gorilla Monsoon or Andre the Giant story. I was demanded. I would spend hours just getting stories from that time because Gorilla Monsoon was my guy. Mm-hmm. I think Gorilla Monsoon, you could have played his voice telling any young man in America in the 80s and to go to bed, and they'd go. Like Gorilla Monsoon said so. So
true.
And Jim Ross was another one. Like everybody where Jim Ross is talking about you. You want him to talk about. He talked about Stone Cold and Mankind and Taker. You just Jim Ross. My God, Tyrus. He just opened the fridge. You think about how great the storytelling was. I think that's the biggest difference between wrestling then and wrestling now is the guys who called it. They protected the wrestlers and they told stories.
Oh, good point.
Gorilla Monsoon, if something went wrong in the ring, it was supposed to because the guy you're wrestling is a professional. One of my favorite things, and I do it whenever I call matches, is a guy. It used to be the abdominal stretch, right? That was the move back then. You'd get a guy, you'd hook him in the abdominal stretch, and Gorilla Monsoon would point out he doesn't have the foot quite hooked under the leg. If he had that under the leg, it'd be over, And you're like, oh, that makes sense. And he didn't hook the leg, and then what happens? Because he didn't hook the leg, eventually the babyface figures it out and he flips him out of there. He gave, the excellence of execution. Brett earned that name because Brett made no mistakes in the ring, and Gorilla would put him over. He was never out of position. So we had great, and Jim Ross made you think you were there. When Jim Ross was, if you go back and if you didn't watch WCW as a kid, I challenge you guys to watch it now.
Oh yeah.
You watched, especially like Flair King or Flair and Luger.
Oh yeah.
Jim Ross, I get goosebumps, or Dusty and Flair, and Jim Ross is calling it. Man, it's just him and Totally Schiavone. There was interchangeable, of course. A lot of people remember him when he was Jerry Lawler, but you watch the old Totally Schiavone and him from back in the day, and you will be a fan again. You'll be like, I don't understand why everyone doesn't like Lex Luger. He's awesome. Just listen to how Jim Ross talks about it. The two guys working their butts off in the ring, and the announcers are trying to sell a soft drink. That bothers me. Like that, in that aspect, and I get it, the world's changed, but I think it's the storytelling, the reason why you guys hold on to it so much, because every match was awesome. Hacksaw Jim Duggan feuding with King Haku, or it did the entire card. Everyone was a character. Everybody was over, and I think that was that time. And you didn't have things like the internet to ruin it, spoiler alerts, and all that crap that we have now. Just enjoy the show, and I think that's why, especially men, hang on to it, because it was cool. You got to see your favorite hero fight every week. He came back every week. Wasn't like boxing or football where they go away for a while or an off season. So I think that's why we all hold on to it so much. I just was fortunate enough to where I ended up being able to do it professionally.
Yeah. I mean, you really were lucky. And to your point, WCW with Monday Nitro, they really told great stories. And I'm sure you remember at the end when Sting would come out and they would be like, Sting, he's in the Reno, we gotta go. It just got people pumped up to tune in again next week.
And that's even later. Go back further. Go back before the Raw, Monday Night Raw. Go back to when Starrcade and Slamboree were like in the 80s and 86, like when every match. I mean, you're going to see stuff like you've never even seen before. Like you'll see it now. That, oh man, they never did that before. No, they did it. I think probably the worst, best thing to watch was the scaffold matches. Watch the Legion of Doom, the Midnight Express.
Yeah,
Jim Cornette falling off the. It's fun. Okay, since we're going to talk wrestling a little bit, so. I did the spot that Big Boss Man, well, of course he was Big Bubba then, Jim Cornette, where he was supposed to catch him, but of course he didn't, and Jim blew out both his knees. So Christian is wrestling Alberto in a ladder match for the heavyweight championship, and someone was like, "Well, couldn't he like hold the belt and somebody catch him?" And because I'm smart, I was like, "I got you," and he Christian looked at me like, "Oh. Not man, bro." I saw the spot. I got it. Like it's no problem. He's like, Bubba dropped him. I was like, did he? So, but he got me because in that match. Now, Attitude Era guys had it easy. They could cuss, act a fool, cut themselves open, powerbomb somebody off the top of a cage. So. PG era, we had all these handcuffs on us, so we had to be real creative with how we did things. And one of the things was we weren't allowed to bleed at all. Like if you bled, you got fined. Like if you got, I think Chris Jericho and Batista did something like it. Like you were not allowed to bleed on wrestling in the WWE at all. So, and we had all these ladders around, and there was this one little tiny ladder. And I looked at it, and Chris was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna hit you with this." And I just looked back at him. I was like, "That little ass thing." I was like, okay, that thing busted me open when it hit me on the top of my head to the back of my head. And all I could think of was if you go back and watch, I throw myself out of the ring to avoid getting one drop of blood on the mat because it was $5 fine. They didn't say anything about bleeding on the floor. So I threw myself out, not one drop. This is how you know I'm conservative. Not wasting my fun, my hard work.
I love that story.
You can Google blood. It looks like a perfect puddle because if you get hit in the head, you bleed.
Oh yeah.
And I look like I'm dead. You know, and we sell, and of course I had to get up and catch him. But the spot where Christian, when I pulled him off the ladder and caught him, when I had him, you know, then of course he slid and there was the face to the ladder, and then that was, and he went on to win his first championship. So it was cool to be not one drop.
It's amazing. That's an amazing story, Tyrus. So I want to transition to your modern life here, and obviously you've become quite a star.
It's about to get real boring. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, you become a star at Fox News. Clearly, your relationship with Greg Gutfeld, and then everything else that you've done there has been spectacular. I'm wondering, you know, sort of early in life, obviously you were focused on wrestling, you were a bunch of different things. Like, did you always sort of have the same ideological bent? It just sort of became marketable?
No, I don't think anyone has. Where I am, I vote based off my life experiences.
Yeah.
And I think most people, if they're honest, that's really where your voting comes from, because you vote for where you're at and the point you are in life. And sometimes the fantasy of who you vote for is more real than actually getting out and voting. What I mean by that is, like, I'm not a Republican because I was born in the Republican Party, or I wasn't a Republican because they swung by my house one day and said, "Hey, come join our club." I started out, kind of starts out like a Democrat when you're younger, when you don't always appreciate the value of a hard-earned dollar, or you haven't done it yet. And you see Democrats paint a good picture of how it's, you know, programs and helping everybody and giving back, and their messaging kind of comes on like it's young coming up. You know, they're about the young guys and stay away from the establishment, and the Republicans are establishments. You get caught up in all that stuff, but it was never to the level it is today. And I just remember my first, I'm out of college, and I had a workout and a tryout, and I signed like one of my first early, like 10-day contracts or workout contracts or whatever. And I remember it was like $13,000, and I could not wait to get that check.
Yeah.
And when I got the check for $4,675, and I was like, where is my money? And I'm looking at all the taxation, and I'm like, and I just was like, they didn't run one lap. They didn't lift one weight. They up all night tackling people, and they took half my stuff because it was considered a luxury tax. And I was just like, I'm like, oh no, this isn't right. And like, then you get to the point where I started paying attention to where my taxes were going. And I'm like, listen, whenever you would ask, you know, anyone who was in the Democratic Party, like, why are we paying for all these services? Do they work? Because they've been around for years, and you never hear of like, oh, I was only on for 3 years. I was only on for this. My mother had really tough times, but there was not one day where she ever was like, hey, we need to go get food stamps. She found a way because she believed in the American work ethic, and it was passed on to me. So it was hard for me to be like, well, you know, if I don't feel like working, I can just catch unemployment. To me, that was the kiss of death. And I'm proud that I never had to do that. But and as you grow and as I look at what's best for me and understanding where my money goes and how my money is spent, what's going on in my community, and that just grew into, hey, turns out I'm really conservative because I don't like the government in terms of these giant overinflated programs where you'll see them write a check for $7 billion or something like $7 billion for for example, the newest one, $7 billion allocated to pay for charge up stations.
Yeah.
And they've built 8.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there was a dumb example, right? I mean, that is just the most. I watched
8.
Mayor Pete try to explain that the other day, and I was just blown away that they could do that with a straight face.
But the cold part was they said 8, like we were like, oh, well, you got 8.
Yeah, it's like $1 billion a station. No big deal, right?
Yeah, it's under. Well, I hope they don't have a bathroom in these places, because that's going to be another $220 million to get one. Was it San Francisco per toilet? $2 million. So when you see the government, and the money, you never know where the money's really going. Being conservative and paying attention to your tax dollars, I think, is what led me to my path. It was not a candidate necessarily. It wasn't a. It was just looking at Republicans. At least I always respect Republicans because the messaging to me was always, I worked my ass off to get mine. This is the country that you can do it. Get yours. I'm getting mine. And as long as our interests don't interfere with each other, may the best man win. So, and I think that's the American way. Like we live in we live in the only country where you can change. You can go from nothing to generational wealth. You stick to any job in 5 years in America and bust your ass and do what you need to do, you will be somewhere at the end of that 5.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I don't care what it is. If it's Fox News, if it's McDonald's, if you put your work ethic and educate yourself to be the best at what you're doing in that moment, nothing but good things will happen. And other doors will open that aren't necessarily connected. Perfect example. Wrestling, football, acting, bodyguard, whatever. I was always doing the best I could do. And then doors open because people were like, hey, man, you're a great bodyguard. But, man, the jokes you make when you're beating people up is hilarious. Is there a way you could do that without beating people up? Or, hey, you just beat that Tommy Dreamer who discovered me in a bar fight in California. He was like, hey, man, you always make jokes and giggle when you do that to people? I was like, yeah. He's like, you need to do that on TV. And I laughed at him. And he was like, no, seriously. But it was being who I was that opened this door and opened that door. And so you never know where it's going to take you, but hard work, determination, and just rolling up your sleeves and taking some accountability. That's a big word that we don't use enough anymore. Accountability, good things can happen. So I always was the same person. I never thought like NFL or bust. I never thought WWE or bust or Fox News. I had no clue. No, there was never a time in my life, fellas, where I was like sitting with my homie somewhere and like, yo, what you gonna do if this football don't work out? Well, maybe I'll take my ass down to Fox News and that never happened.
Yeah.
That never happened.
That's very, very believable. Listen, it's a fascinating story. I want to hear a little bit about your show. I got 3 questions that I always end these things with, but before we get to it, I do want to hear about your show, Maintaining with Tyrus.
It's a conversation. It's bringing on people that I'm fascinated about, and I want to hear their story. Doesn't necessarily. I don't need to have a 5-star celebrity. Some of our best stories and best guests are just everyday people who have stepped up. I'm trying to get. I have an issue with always interviewing celebrities.
Yeah,
I'm going to interview them about the movie or the song they wrote. All for it. But when we look to making celebrity a citizen that you need to go for reference to based on whether they're a good actor or not, to me seems to be silly. Now, if they put the same work ethic that they do in their acting career as they are their political agenda or their political, whatever their issues are, and they can speak on it and show leadership and all that kind of good stuff, then I'm all for it. But the idea that you need to be in line with somebody who makes 100 times more than you do in terms of their voting habits versus yours, it's easy for, look, if you're a millionaire or 10 millionaire or 100 millionaire, what every 4 years change is not going to change your tax dollar. You've got people in place for that. So when you have somebody with a celebrity comes on talking to you, like you're like, we have absolutely nothing in common.
Yep.
You need more than Robert De Niro is a perfect example. Who knew? He's a tremendous actor. At least half of my favorite movies, he's in one.
Totally agree. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
But who knew that he could not public speak without a script? Like, I had no clue. Like, this dude never took an improv class in his entire life. Like, he kept having to look at his notes when he's talking about someone he hates. Yeah. I'm like, is this a character? Yeah. Are you playing? Like, I'm confused. You know, he didn't. When in Goodfellas, he wasn't like, you disrespect him a little bit. A little bit.
Dude, it's such a good point.
He's gonna destroy the world who wrote this? Like,
it's totally a good point. Hey,
it's gotta be performance art. Are we sure? Like, there's got to be an origin story, fellas. There has to be a point. I think the origin story between President Trump and Robert De Niro goes all the way back It's got to be over a woman.
Has to be.
And I don't know this to be true, but I have a source. And basically, I was told that back early in their career, when both guys had full heads of hair, there was an actress who was up and coming, and De Niro was sweet on her, and he was helping her get along, got her acting lessons, dancing lessons. And it wasn't even about that, just to show you that he was not he wasn't about the finance ends of it. He loved her. He thought she was beautiful. And along came this Donald Trump with his fancy hair and money and gala manners, and he stole his date. And then it got ugly between them. And apparently, at the time, De Niro was raising racehorses, and De Niro had apparently his people had made some threats to the young lady, and basically said her acting career was over. And then lo and behold, there was a cut off horse's head in De Niro's bed, and of course they backed off, and she was able to go on. Sharon Stone, I was eventually able to go on, become who she was.
Sharon Stone.
And
that story is way too good to check. I don't want to fact check that for a second. That is fantastic.
It does sound a lot like Godfather. I can't prove this. I only have one source on this. This is me and my beer trying to think, why does he hate him so much? Because it just feels personal. That's the best that I could come up with.
It sounds good.
It just feels right.
It feels right.
You know what? I've heard it too.
No, now I heard it from a couple of guys.
Yeah, going around. I've heard a lot of people are saying.
Many people are saying.
I'm not saying it, but a lot of people are saying it. So,
Tyrus, I got 3 quick ones I got to give you here. This is how we wrap up every interview with a major guest as of yourself. The first one is, if you can plan your last meal on Earth, what would it be?
veal parm.
Veal parm.
Great
I
choice.
love it. Clean and right to the point. And our guy Spaghetti here is going to love that answer. That's fantastic. All right, second question. With the benefit of retrospect, you look back on your life, you've been through so many different things, had so many different paths in your career that you've pursued. But if you were to just kind of like wipe it out and with the benefit of retrospect, look back in the last 10, 20 years, and you can fill it with absolutely anything, what would it be?
Nothing. I have the last few years of my life has been seeing the fruits of all my years of sacrifice and hard work. My kids are thriving and doing their thing, and I get to watch that, and I'm allowed to sit in a chair and crack jokes and be a smart ass, get a paycheck for it. However I got to where I am, all the bad stuff or whatever setbacks, those are all part of the formula. I never want to take away failure, because failure is the great teacher. So I wouldn't change anything, man. I could not be in a better place right now if I tried, which maybe personally have some maybe better relationships, but it's a work in progress. But you have to make sacrifices. You want to take care of your family. You want to be the alpha male at the head of the table. You got to go out, get off your ass and work. So no regret. Wouldn't change a thing.
I love that. All right. So third question, and you got to bear with me for a second while I explain it. It's what you're motivated by. And our view is that.
Oh, that's easy. Spite.
Well, so you just cut to the chase, right? It's an agony of defeat guy. It's either thrill of victory or agony of defeat. Agony of defeat is like you celebrate for like 1 second every achievement you've ever had, but any setback or slight or whatever, you carry around like a backpack. You answered it in one word.
Yeah, I love being told I can't.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
And, acting, stand-up comedy, I was too big, or the only roles I'd play in was guys like your size kill me. So I always love being told no. I think that's the best. And then, of course, you don't ever say anything to anyone, because revenge is the best success. But every once in a while, I'm not above punching down every once in a while. I try not, but it's just sometimes it's hard.
Just a gentleman's take right there. Just a gentleman. He tries not to, but every once in a while.
The thing is the reason why I say that is because when you acknowledge the hater, they matter now.
Yeah.
So when somebody Kat Timpf, she on the Gutfeld show, she gets attacked a lot for being a libertarian, and which is crazy to me. But she'll try sometimes to fix the bridge, like with a fan that's just saying horrible things, and she tries to like, hey, this is my opinion and I respect your opinion. And I always say, like, why did you give them air?
Yeah.
So every once in a while jump in and be like, if I jump in with a troll or whatever, I feel like I'm giving you oxygen. So I try not to do that. But every once in a while, somebody will catch me on the wrong day, and I'll be like, you know what? I think I'm going to get my dancing shoes on. It's very rare, but because my guilty feet have no rhythm. But man, it's going to hurt.
Every once in a while, somebody deserves a DDT, right?
Yeah.
I love that. Listen, Tyrus, I can't thank you enough for joining us. You can catch him anywhere on Fox. He's there all the time.
But check out any of my comedy shows. It's all on my link tree on Tyrus. I only have 2 forms of social media. It's X, which is Planet Tyrus, and Instagram, which is Tyrus Smash, both blue check. And unfortunately, to a lot of the older ladies who have been having conversation with Catfish Tyrus, it's not me, ladies. I don't need $300 to escape my family.
At least not that they can prove it, right, Tyrus? You're the man. Thanks for joining us, buddy. Take care, and we'll catch up soon.
All right. Appreciate y'all.
He's just a terrific guy and a wonderful addition to the program today. And we had some technical difficulties, so we weren't able to use the entire interview, unfortunately. But what we got, I thought, was pretty good.
No, I mean, look, he's a super dynamic person who doesn't come from like the mold of what you expect out of cable news personalities, right? He's somebody who's come at this entirely differently from a different background. He was a pro wrestler, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
He's funny. He's got a good takes. And like, honestly, I could have talked to him for 2 hours because I felt like our best stuff was like at the end.
Yeah.
Like he was just sort of getting who we are.
Yeah.
And we were kind of getting who he was. So I'd love to do it again. But I'm glad he came on, and watch his show. I mean, it's very, very entertaining.
Yeah. No, I can't wait to watch it. I'd love to have the guy back.
All right. Well, with that, I mean, a big week. We're going to stay on top of this verdict thing. You'll probably hear from us if it comes down. With all that, Smug, I think we've done it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, again, thank you so much, Tyrus, for appearing on the show. Remember, folks, like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know. Would a guilty verdict for Trump change your vote? So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.